Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch our group's external analysis. Our group chose to do the single location full service restaurant industry, or the FSR industry. I'm Bridget, and I'll be joined by my classmates Alana, Lily, Jacob, Matthew, and Bo to do our external analysis. So, first, I want to define what the industry that we're doing is. So, this industry includes single location, independent, or family operated restaurants that provide waiting services to patrons who order and are served while seated and then pay after they're done eating. Some important inputs for this industry are broken up into three categories. This is capital, labor, and raw materials. And then from these three categories, they are broken down into even further subsections. Next, I would like to talk about some of the biggest firms within this industry. So, most of the industry players in this industry are owner operators with only one establishment that is tended to emphasize its distinctiveness as a selling point. Operators with multiple locations tend to open new restaurants under different names simply to avoid a chain image. And then, as a result of this, there are no individual players in this industry that hold a significant influential market share. But there are some more popular establishments within this industry that can be noted, such as Clyde's Restaurant Group, Joe's Stone Crab, or Tao Las Vegas.
The best illustration of how external factors affected single location full service restaurants is through politics and regulations. The restaurant industry as a whole was affected by political factors over the last year more than by any other factors. A few of these regulations include food safety and health laws, labor laws, government intervention or assistance, and trade control. We know that food safety laws will always be a big part of the industry, whether COVID ever happened or not. You simply can't serve food that isn't up to a certain quality. This will continue to play a huge role in the success of smaller restaurants because quality is everything. However, the reason why I say political factors affected the industry the most is because of new general health and safety laws, the quarantine period initiated by the government, and trade restrictions also due to COVID. With the shutdown came a lot of labor cuts due to both safety laws, like how many people can be in one place, but also due to companies not making as much money to pay the workers. This is where government assistance came into play when they enabled the CARES Act, standing for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. This provided trillions of dollars in loans to businesses in distress, including small businesses, as well as individuals suffering from unemployment. As you can see in the pie charts in the graphic, compare the CARES Act to ARA 2009, another government relief program. However, in CARES, small and distressed businesses were awarded 45%, compared to ARA only awarding 7% to small business aid. The idea is that government worked to help save the businesses that were being threatened by the pandemic and shut down by loaning money to either finance operations or workers that couldn't work at the time. Moving forward, political factors will still affect the business because of stricter safety laws that require more space and less freedom in public.
The single location FSR industry is on the rise for growth in spite of the pandemic. Consumer spending is expected to increase at an annual rate of 2.5%, and consumer confidence is growing as people may segment their disposable income to dining out in order to support the industry after COVID. Overall, profitability is still low because of the competition, especially price based competition pressure is prevalent because so many of these single location firms try to compete by focusing on product innovation and really trying to improve their service quality to ensure that they gain an edge over their competition. Industry wages are also expected to grow at an annual rate of 2.7% to 79.3 billion by 2026. Um, a few social factors that affect the industry include the increase of households earning more than $100,000 annually. These families are seeking out higher end products in fine dining, which can be prevalent in single location, full service restaurants. And as a result, fine dining is expected to perform well over the next 5 years because of more and more people seeking out luxury goods. There's been a rise in demand for healthier products lately, especially with like the gourmet foods, good ingredients, organic foods, vegan products, nut milk, and red meat alternatives. Um, Also, whether or not a restaurant is in the metropolitan location, also affects the industry a lot because a lot of single location FSRs are in bigger cities where there could be a lot of business meetings and corporate events in need of high-end dining. We also have a lot of technological factors as continued investment in technology will allow the industry to thrive. Lately, digital media has been on the rise, especially with ensuring that you have good web marketing, social media engagement, and there has been a growing popularity of food delivery apps over the next 5 years, like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, especially with COVID going on. Um,
Next, our group will talk about how COVID-19 has impacted this industry. At the end of the current period, the food service sector, including the single location full service restaurant industry, took a huge hit from the pandemic. In March 2020, as we all know, many state governments ordered restaurants to pause their dine in services. Data from OpenTable Inc. showed that the dine-in demand at New York restaurants consistently has declined since the beginning of March. And then besides the mandatory closures from the states, demand for dine-in services has just fallen overall due to additional COVID-19 fears. As you can see at the bottom of this slide, we have some data for the year 2020. All of the numbers are negative other than the NAs. Revenue has gone down, enterprises had gone down, employment has gone down a lot, and so have wages. We also have two graphs for the overall industry performance, and in both graphs, you can see that the revenue for 2020 took a big downward spike simply because of the pandemic and all the closures that it had on this industry.
The first element from the external analysis that was affected by the pandemic was technology. As the pandemic started, new products and product developments happened. This happened in the form of the prominence of food delivery apps such as Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. They grew in popularity as people stayed home during the pandemic. You can see in the chart on the bottom right how the revenue of all these different food delivery services grew exponentially when the pandemic started. Delivery is remaining prominent even as we move away from the pandemic, and restaurants must keep utilizing this in order to keep making a profit. Another element from the external analysis that was affected was the economic element. With higher disposable income than the pre-pandemic, people have more disposable income than before. This means people are more willing to spend, and restaurants can get away with charging higher prices for their meals. The other big effect was the labor shortage in restaurants. When all restaurants were forced to close, they lost a large amount of their staff. Upon reopening, restaurants have been struggling to attract employees due to poor pay and difficult hours. This has resulted in restaurants being forced to pay higher wages with more benefits in order to attract employees. If you look on the top right, you can see all the reasons why restaurants are struggling to attract employees and why employees are leaving. The third element from the external analysis that was affected was the political element, with the government mandates that were put into place. When the pandemic started, indoor dining was not allowed of any kind, and when it was reopened, there were capacity limits and mask mandates. These factors discouraged people from going out to eat at restaurants and made more people stay home. All this leads into a big social change from the external analysis, which is the change in lifestyle. Combination of government mandates, health concerns, and food delivery have created a change where people are less likely to go out and order food from a restaurant for their meals, and people are staying at home instead.
So, moving forward, there will be some significant changes to this industry due to COVID. One of them is that there will be a higher emphasis on health and safety in the future. This means that there will be harder health inspections and that there will be just a more emphasis on overall safety in restaurants. There will also be a bigger focus on online and app ordering. This is because consumers have gotten used to doing this in the past year or so they're going to continue these trends up in the future. Some restaurants may also have altered menus. This is because during COVID, some supply chains were disrupted, so certain foods couldn't be sourced anymore. So restaurants have made this adjustment and will most likely keep their menus the altered way that they are. There will also be higher takeout and delivery quantities just because consumers have gotten used to eating at home instead of dining in restaurants, so they will keep these habits up. And there will be changed dining rooms with more spaced out tables because restaurants had made their dining rooms this way during COVID and are most likely going to stick to this just because it is easier for them. Additionally, there will be smaller staffs because during COVID, the cuts in staffing had forced restaurants to adjust to smaller staffs. So now they no longer need the big staffs that they once had. So they'll just stick to the small staffs in the future. And then which firms will win and lose? So most likely larger popular restaurants are more likely to win. And this is because they have bigger reputations, more funds. They just have a larger scale, meaning that they have more consumers. So they're able to make revenue more easily than smaller restaurants would be able to, which will really help them stay afloat in these times. But businesses and restaurants will also need to have imagination to win in the future. So during COVID, the restaurants that were able to survive were able to quickly adjust and adapt to the new environments. And restaurants need to keep this up in the future just in case something else were to happen so that they can stay afloat still. And on the other hand, smaller and less well-known businesses and restaurants are more likely to fail. And that's just because these restaurants have less resources, less publicity, and a lot of them are newer startups. So it's already hard for them to make revenue. But during times like this where business is slow, it'll be especially hard and they'll most likely close and will not win.
The full-service restaurant industry has been affected by several changing external factors due to COVID-19. Political factors, for example, have certainly changed. New laws and mandates by local governments made it impossible for many full-service restaurants to serve their customers indoors for a long time. These orders from local governments thus reduced the amount of customers and profits for many full-service restaurants. Also, during the pandemic, the government has given increased unemployment benefits to those not working. Many would argue that these increased benefits discourage people from obtaining a job, thus leading to labor shortages. Labor shortages led to inefficiencies in operations and led to less happy customers. In terms of social factors, there's been an increase in households earning more than $100,000 annually. Many households now have more discretionary income to spend at restaurants. Full-service restaurants should respond to this by using higher quality ingredients and fancier dishes as more options. Also, as more of America's population start to live in metropolitan areas, full-service restaurants are responding by placing new locations closer to major metropolitan areas. Technologically, the rise of social media use during the pandemic has resulted in many FSRs making accounts to promote their restaurants and deals. Many companies are now even hiring social media managers. Also, the rise of food delivery services like DoorDash pressured many restaurants to integrate their businesses with delivery apps to spur more business. Moving forward, there will be many changes in the FSR industry due to COVID-19. There will be a bigger emphasis on health and safety, which will lead to more online ordering, more spaced out tables, and more outdoor dining. Also, because of supply chain issues due to the pandemic, FSRs need to be ready to alter their menus quickly in case of shortages. All in all, the pandemic has caused a lot of change to external factors affecting full-service restaurants. The industry will continue to change going forward. The FSRs that will succeed in the future are the ones that are innovative, creative, and willing to continue to adapt to continuously changing external forces. Thank you.